making shit! Nobody cares! These movies are terrible!
That's too many S's. That's too many. That's not even like aesthetically pleasing to say. You got like studio sucks, sass. That's actually really hard to say unless you're a snake. And wouldn't it be Marvel Studios suck ass? Because they're like one thing. I don't know. I guess I could say like Marvel Studios sucks penis, but I don't know. That might be kind of offensive. Let's just move on. So I've had the idea for this video in the works for a long time. Some of the script for this actually showed up in the preamble to my Guardians of the Galaxy review because it's been lying around for so long. But now finally seems the time to just sit down and let this all go. Just to say all of my piece on the issue in one fell swoop and just get it all out of my system. Because everyone already knows how I feel about this shitty, unrestrained, cash-sucking studio of absolute shit, but nobody really seems to understand why. So here, in one concise video, is why. Confused Matthew has never been anything more than something that I do for fun. I don't count myself among the talents that actually do this as a real production or within a unified strategy. I just turn the mic on and talk about whatever I think is interesting. It started with Back to the Future Part 2 and The Lion King because those were two universally successful films that I didn't like very much, so it seemed the most interesting subjects for me to tackle. Later on, this kind of became the unspoken theme for my main reviews, although not for any reasons that I planned. You know, talking about movies that everybody liked but me for one reason or another. The problem with that as a prime concept is that there actually aren't very many successful films that I feel that way about. A lot of the movies that I've reviewed, for good or for bad, either had mixed receptions in the first place, were requested reviews, or popular demand reviews. In fact, most of the big reviews I've done have been films that people didn't like in the first place. I would wager that there are really only 3 films that fall into the extreme minority of opinion category: Back to the Future Part 2, The Lion King, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is likely why those are my 3 all-time most controversial reviews. So honestly, this idea that I disagree with the majority most of the time is not very well founded. In fact, rarely do I find myself having a view that differs that much from the majority. So as a concept, I'd say that the idea that I would continue to review films that everybody loved but me wasn't something that really worked out so well. But then Marvel came along, and they gave me perhaps the greatest gift or curse that someone like me can be bestowed. They gave me a whole fucking universe to despise. Ah, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What a blood-sucking, rancid, horrible waste of time, money, and attention. It may seem weird that I'm essentially doing a Confused Matthew review for an entire film studio rather than a film, but they really have left me no choice. It's not just that these films are bad. They are. But the biggest problem is that they're also lorded over by an unrestrained whore giant of a studio that continues to shill them out. And that is actually more relevant than just talking about the films. Now, in fairness, people have made one defense of what Marvel is doing that I can kind of see. They've pointed out that they actually are doing something that no one has ever done before. Instead of just making franchises, they have tied multiple franchises together into the same universe. Now, I would argue that they do this poorly and sloppily and at the expense of the films they're actually making. I would also argue that people have done this before. They were called movie serials, which only existed because they barely had television yet, so a lot of these had to be serialized, and as soon as they could do this kind of shit faster and more efficiently on television, and didn't need to wait years for the next installment that may or may not be good, they stopped doing this, and to do something like this again would be literally taking us back to the cinematic dark ages. But I do have to say that at the core, this is correct. There was no modern precedent for doing something like this, and that in a way was kind of a risk this studio took that actually paid off. I just think it resulted in shallow, knowingly bad films that extort money from the general public. Really original, though. I recently reviewed Guardians of the Galaxy, and in that review I touched upon why I feel that way in the preamble, but honestly, I almost have to hand it to that movie. It actually didn't do anything in the way of extending the cinematic universe brand. It didn't make mention to any of the other and I use this term loosely, movies, it was its own self-contained film. I actually do have to give it credit for that. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the only Marvel movies that I cannot criticize for being a commercial for something else. It is one of the only Marvel movies that I can actually criticize simply for being absolutely terrible. I'm not joking, that actually is an improvement for this studio. Guardians of the Galaxy was written and directed by James Gunn, an award-winning director and the writer of such cinematic masterpieces as Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo 2: Monsters Unleashed, and by award-winning director, I mean he won not one, but 2 Razzie Awards for Worst Director and Worst Screenplay. 2 Razzie Awards! This is what Marvel Studios considers talent. Now, typically, I will not respond to comments or responses for my videos because I don't think that's my place. I've said my piece in my videos and everyone else is free to say theirs. But just keep this in the back of your minds for the rest of time. Whenever anyone defends this studio, defends these films, defends Marvel as being anything but a shitty cash-sucking scam of a film studio, just infer that I have responded with a mere 3 words. 2 Razzie Awards. That's all I have to say from now until the end of time. 2 Razzie Awards. Now, the following theory is pure conjecture on my part, but let me ask you this. Marvel Studios was so keen to work with a failed writer and director while at the same time letting a genius like Edgar Wright walk. Is the reason that is because they know that Gunn would be easy to control? Because they know he wouldn't give them any trouble, and while he's a shitty writer and director who will probably make their movie bad, he at least wouldn't have the clout to defy them? The conjectural answer to that conjectural question is, of course it fucking is! Speaking of conjecture, I do have to make somewhat of an apology for something that made it into my preamble to the Guardians of the Galaxy review. I told the tale of woe in which Edgar found out that his screenplay was being rewritten by hacks and that this caused him to quit the project. Unfortunately, I didn't safeguard that statement by telling people that it was pure conjecture. There has been no official statement on the part of either Wright or Marvel Studios as to why Edgar left. Only statements to the effect that there were creative differences and whatnot. My version of the events was purely theoretical, but they did come off as if they were established fact, which they were not. The topic of Edgar's departure is one of great conjecture. People were right to point this out in my review, and I apologize to anyone who felt misled. I should have been more upfront about that. But let me tell you a story that at first will seem unrelated, but will later be seen as being quite relevant. Now, I really hate to talk about politics or topics like this on this show because I don't think it's relevant to what I do. But for the purposes of this example, I really have no choice, so here we go. Back in the election year of 2012, a bigoted, yuppie, racist fuckhead named Rick Santorum actually thought he was gonna be president. Anyway, he was conducting a rally one evening that was being taped by the media. Santorum, fuckhead that he is, said this.
We know the candidate Barack Obama, what he was like. The anti-war government, America was a source for.
I had a discussion about this with a family member of mine who shall remain nameless. All I can say is that it wasn't Stand and Stan. He was actually just as upset about this as I was. I love this anonymous family member to death, but his political views are, well, stupid and silly and dumbheaded. Anyway, well, I said to this family member, that ass clown just committed political suicide. Oh, why do you say that? Because he got in front of a microphone, forgot that he wasn't at the country club with his WASP buddies, and called the president the N-word at a taped rally. Oh, you don't know that's what he was gonna say. What do you mean I don't know that's what he was gonna say? He didn't finish the word, you don't know, he could have been saying anything. Okay, anonymous family member, you're right. I don't know what he was going to say. I don't know with 100% certainty what this word that he felt was so horrible that he had to cut it off and then stammer like a jackass after he realized what he almost said was going to be. But let me ask you this. What do you think he was going to say? I don't know. Well, give it half a second's thought. What word naturally follows from the letters N-I-G? I don't know. Well, give it half a second's thought. Do you think he was going to call him a negotiator? I don't know. Well, give it half a second's thought. Do you think he was going to call him a Cuisinart? I don't know. Yeah, you do know. Fuck you. Shut up. So by the logic of the story I just told, I ask you all this. Why do you think Edgar Wright left this project? Do you think that he did not like the size of his office? Do you think the material he wrote was not up to standard? Do you think any of this had to do with any problem on his end? Jon Favreau is pretty sure he knows the answer to that question because this studio did the same fucking thing to him. Allow me to reenact Favreau's experience working on Iron Man 2 in an incredibly silly and immature way. Hey guys, I got a great idea going for Iron Man 2. We're gonna have a story where Tony faces death, looks back on his life, questions his own legacy, and thinks about what he's leaving behind. Oh, yeah, that's whatever you were talking about for you, but, listen here, Jim. John. Whatever. We're making the Avengers in a few years, so whatever else you do with your little movie, we also need you to shoehorn in the eye patch guy, the redhead woman, that bored guy, and make constant reference to the fact that the Avengers is coming up. Well, that doesn't really fit with the movie that I wrote. Fuck your movie. I'm sorry, what? Come in here real close. Fuck your movie. This is a commercial now. We've got shit to sell. I don't care if any of this doesn't fit. I don't care if this turns out bad. Everyone is gonna pay to see this no matter what we do. Now get your ass in the director's chair and shill our shit, you bitch. According to sources at cinemablend.com, Iron Man 2 wasn't the movie Jon Favreau wanted to make. Marvel interfered heavily with his work on the movie and turned the project into an infomercial for the Avengers. Favreau felt that the movie was rushed into production, and if you followed the development process, you know it was, and they pushed him into making it without a fully realized script. Iron Man 2 wasn't the movie he wanted to make because of that. If there's an Iron Man 3, there's every reason to think he won't be back. Marvel doesn't want to pay him, and Favreau may not want to deal with more Marvel interference. Now, anyone who's seen Iron Man 3 knows that he did not come back except in the role of Happy. He did not direct. And anyone who actually paid to see the piece of shit that was Iron Man 2 already knows all this. What bothers me about this to this day is that they didn't even hide this. They didn't even feel like they had to be evasive about this. They screwed with impunity the audience who wanted to see a sequel to a movie they liked and said, you're all stupid. So what if we hijacked Favreau's movie and made you all sit through an Avengers commercial when you thought you were going to see Iron Man 2? You'll still see our movies anyway. You know you will, you fucks. They took what could have been a great sequel and fucked it over. Fucked the audience that wanted to see an Iron Man sequel. Fucked Mickey Rourke's hard work. Fucked Jon Favreau's reputation on this thing. Also, they could sell us the Avengers, which everyone was gonna see anyway. What kind of a studio would do that to people? A self-serving, money-grubbing fuckhead studio is what. I don't trust them after that. I don't believe them after that. Because a studio that puts their bottom line and their brand recognition over and above the hard work and talent of the people who actually make their movies is one that does not deserve the trust of anyone. But what sickens me, what truly sickens me in the light of Jon Favreau's statement regarding Edgar Wright's departure is this, and I quote, Edgar's a dear friend of mine. I was so looking forward to his version of Ant-Man. All of Edgar's films have been studio films. It's not like he's never made one before. I think he's been used to a situation where you can have a tremendous creative say around his story and casting. And Marvel has built an entire franchise around their style of telling story. I'm sorry, I couldn't even say that with a straight face. I know both parties well, and I respect his decision to see that he wasn't going to be fulfilled in the process. That's all I can really say. To loosely translate what Favreau just said, yeah, it's a real shame that Edgar's movie got fucked after so many years of hard work, just like my movie got fucked by the same studio in the exact same way, but oh, I like Marvel too. Now, I like Jon Favreau. I think he's a great director and a great guy, and he's made some fine movies. But for fuck's sake, Jon, stop being Marvel's bitch. And I know you're all like, that's easy for you to say, and well, yeah, I mean, internet personality, everything's easy for me to say. They fucked your movie. They fucked his movie. They fucked the audiences that paid to see that movie. Grow some fucking balls and tell them to go fuck themselves. But he won't, because Jon Favreau likes having a job, and telling the Marvel studio overlords that what they did might be a little bit wrong could lead to some serious employment issues. Which is why I love Mickey Rourke, because Mickey has no problem calling Marvel out on their bullshit.
I'm not a Marvel fan.
You're not a Marvel fan?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Are you a DC guy?
I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay. You're not a comic book fan?
Yeah, I did a movie for Marvel, and they cut the whole thing out, and it was like,
we're gonna cut some stuff out as well. Yeah.
You will forgive me if I have to fetch a bib for this next part, because I positively drool over these statements. See, Mickey Rourke actually worked on the character he played in Iron Man 2, and he actually thought about his role, but the studio didn't give a fuck, and I'll just let Rourke's words speak for themselves. When I did Ivan Vanko in Iron Man, I fought. I explained to the writer and to Jon Favreau that I wanted to bring some other layers and colors to the character, not just make this Russian a complete murderous, revenging bad guy, and they allowed me to do that. Unfortunately, the people at Marvel just wanted a one-dimensional bad guy, so most of the performance ended up on the floor. I remember once saying that no one involved in the productions of these films actually cared if they were good or not. I absolutely apologize for that statement. Plenty of people like Mickey Rourke and others cared if these movies were good. Marvel fucking Studios didn't care if they were good or not, and unfortunately, they had the deciding vote. Here's another one from Rourke. It's fucking too bad, but it's their loss. If they want to make mindless comic book movies, then I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to have to care so much and work so hard and then fight them for intelligent reasoning. And just because they're calling the shots, I didn't work for 3 months on the accent and all the adjustments and go to Russia just so I could end up on the floor, because that can make somebody say at the end of the day, fuck 'em, I'm just gonna mail it in. But I'm not that kind of guy. I'm never going to mail it in. Mickey, you get it now, but you didn't get it then. They don't care if you mail it in. They do just want to make mindless comic book movies. One-dimensional characters is all they want. They don't give a shit how good any of these movies are. They know that whatever their fucking logo is on will sell. I said this in a previous review, but I'm just going to say it again. Why did they even bother to hire talent if they don't give a shit about this? Okay, just one more, and this one is by far my favorite. You have to fight for that, though, to bring layers to the character. Otherwise, if you're working for the wrong studio, or let's say a director that doesn't have any balls, then they're just gonna want it to be the evil bad guy. So if you're working with some good studio guys that got brains, and you're working with a director that has a set of nuts that'll let you incorporate that, then it's fun. Otherwise, you end up with what happened on Iron Man. Fucking thank you! But I mean, what would Mickey Rourke know about Marvel Studios anyway? He only fucking worked for them. Rourke got fucked the same way Wright got fucked, the same way Favreau got fucked, the same way Norton got fucked. Edward Norton, yeah, let's talk about him for a minute. This was an actor who was fired from this studio in the most bullshit public display I have ever seen. In an official statement from Marvel, they said the following: "We have made the decision not to bring Ed Norton back to portray the title role of Bruce Banner in the Avengers. Our decision is definitely not one based on monetary factors, but instead rooted in the need for an actor who embodies the creativity and collaborative spirit of our other talented cast members. The Avengers demands players who will thrive working as part of an ensemble, as evidenced by Robert, Chris H., Chris E., Sam, Scarlett, and all of our talented casts. We are looking to announce a name actor who fulfills these requirements and is passionate about the iconic role in the coming weeks. So, I guess in addition to all the other grievances I've laid out here, we can add unprofessional to the list of fucking shit that Marvel pulled, because holy shit! That was just plain tactless. The bullet points to this statement are as follows. Apparently, Edward Norton isn't as creative as the rest of the cast. Apparently, he can't work as part of an ensemble. And apparently, he wasn't passionate enough about the role. Unlike all the other actors who just added so much depth to their characters. Will someone please explain to me what is the quantifiable difference between the redhead character and the guy with the arrows character aside from the genitals? Now, The Incredible Hulk was a shit film, but it wasn't because of Edward Norton. He was fine. Not passionate or creative? I've never gotten that impression from him, and neither have his representatives, who issued a statement back calling those allegations baseless, offensive, purposefully misleading, and inappropriate. And boy howdy, were they ever. It's just everything that I have come to expect from this fucking studio. You can look up the Norton controversy yourself and draw your own conclusions. Personally, I think that Norton was fired for the heinous crime of refusing to be Marvel's bitch. But that's me. And you know, it's always funny to me when Marvel fans will argue the artistic merits of what this studio does, yet it always seems to be that the people who are constantly being alienated and fucked by this studio are the people who actually make art. And then there's James Gunn. 2 Razzie Awards. 2 Razzie Awards! In the face of every single talent we've talked about, they keep James Gunn with 2 fucking Razzie... I can't even tell. I need a break. I need a fucking break.
Commercial! Commercial!
Okay, now let's get to the issue of the movies themselves. How they were made, how they were released, and how I ended up despising what they do. Yes, it all stems from my experience with Iron Man 2, and yes, Iron Man 2 was the worst offender of them to date. But no, that doesn't mean that they didn't constantly do this from this point on. With rare exception, the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe is nothing but a giant commercial for itself, and it has sacrificed every project it's ever worked on, with a few exceptions, to make less movie and more advertisement. Let me just break this down in case you don't understand so far. Okay, and I know this is going to be a foreign concept for a lot of people in this day and age, but here's how it all worked for me. I liked Iron Man. And because I liked Iron Man, I wanted to see a sequel to Iron Man. But when I went to the sequel to Iron Man, what I got was Marvel Studios saying, no, you will like and be excited about all this other shit too, where the old woman gets it. Me liking Iron Man and wanting to see a sequel to it was something Marvel Studios could give a fuck about. Let me give you an example of what a bewildering experience it was watching this film. Now, this was something that I was going to bring up in my review of Iron Man 2, but I cut it out because it didn't seem that important. Listen to what the board guy says to Tony in one of these shitty scenes.
I heard you broke the perimeter.
Yeah. That was like 3 years ago. Where you been?
I was doing some stuff.
I was doing some stuff? Like, seriously? Who the fuck wrote I was doing some stuff? Was it a kindergartner? Is this what we've been reduced to in dialogue these days? Did a studio executive or script supervisor not hear how fucking awful that sounded? Of course, now I completely know better. How the fuck was I supposed to know he was talking about the shit he was doing in the Thor movie? I was never gonna see that piece of shit. I just wanted to watch Iron Man 2! But, oh no, now I know better. Here's what I was supposed to do. In addition to looking at the fucking end credits scene of Iron Man, I was also supposed to sit through the shitty Hulk movie where you get the Tony Stark cameo. Then on to shitty Iron Man 2 where you get the eye patch guy, redhead girl, board guy, and the oh so subtly placed Captain America shield. Then on to Captain America, where you get the fucking shove a dick in your mouth Tesseract storyline that carried over to the end of the Thor movie, where you also get the board guy and the guy with the arrows and the Tesseract from Captain America linking to Thor, which will link all of them up to the Avengers. 5 feature films? You want me to watch 5 feature films just so I can acclimate myself to the fucking Avengers? What if I don't want to watch those films? What if I don't care about those other films? What if I just want to stick to the franchise I like? How can I stick with the franchise I like when you keep shoehorning this other bullshit into it? That's what it is. That's my problem right there, all in a nutshell. All this shit, all this cinematic universe bullshit in every fucking film. These are not Easter eggs. These are not even fucking trailers as I once deemed them. This is product placement for their own fucking products. Fuck that bullshit. I am not going to be conscripted into liking this shit. I will decide for myself what I think is worth my time, and Marvel will not decide that for me, no matter how much of this unrelated, half-baked bullshit they cram into the theaters. This all started out with one decent movie. One decent movie. Not a good movie, but loads of potential. But after that, it just became this untamable shit beast. And here's what Jon Favreau once said about that situation. Through Iron Man, Marvel found its tone and voice, but nothing was expected of it. And then the success came, and then there was pressure to continue that brand, and that's where it becomes more challenging. To sum that statement up, this fucking studio took something creative and fun, distilled it down to its mere selling points, and then just did that for the rest of fucking time. Well, not necessarily until the end of time, but at least until 2019. That's right, while a studio with any sanity or restraint at all might announce a film about 2 years ahead of time, Marvel has announced a slew of new films that are set to be released between now and 2019. 2019! I once made a joke, to Stand in Stan, that Marvel is eventually just going to make one big assembly line and throw a shit ton of products on a linear conveyor belt a decade in advance. Good lord, I was only off by half! And while this is happening, we have movies from the fucking whatever it is DC studio there is, and we have the Sony Spider-Man shit, whatever X-Men movie they're gonna do, so it's really nice to know that we have nothing interesting or innovative to look forward to for the next half-decade. And what's more, it may all be for fucking bullshit, because my own personal guess is that we're going to see a lot of canceled projects in Marvel's crystal ball of a fucking release future. Because my personal guess is that we have, at best, 2 more major releases from this studio before people wise up. Bubbles burst. People move on to other things. The market is already so fucking oversaturated with all this shit, people aren't going to care for much longer. You can't keep people stupid forever. I mean, through 2019. For fuck's sake, Marvel Studios, as the wise man once said, restrain yourself. Now, I'm not discounting the possibility that some of these films might be good. What I am discounting is the cynical notion that Marvel will throw names casually onto a giant production assembly line and just hope they have an idea for a good film when they fucking get around to it. Who does that? Who makes movies like that? Marvel. Marvel makes movies like that. And they fucking suck because of it. Now, as all of this is winding down, let me just address my suggestion that Marvel Studio likes to play it safe, doesn't take any risks, and just churns out the same shit over and over again. Several upon hundreds of viewers of mine have insisted to me that this is not the case. They've all said the same thing to me at one time or another, that Marvel does take creative risks, and those creative risks are the very films I have praised. The fact that they made Iron Man 3 and Captain America the Winter Soldier, which were miles away from the established formula, is proof of that. They took a huge risk with what they did with the Mandarin, so it is untrue to say that this studio simply plays it safe and does the bare minimum. My response to this is yes. Iron Man 3 and Captain America the Winter Soldier were legitimately good films. And Marvel did take a risk in going outside of their formula to make those films happen. But that's my point. These are 2 films out of 9. 2 films that are standalone, well-written features that have nothing to sell themselves on but the value of their stories, characters, and concepts. The fact that making films like these was considered a risk in the first place is the problem. Making good films should not be a risk. It should be a studio's fucking mission statement. That should be the goal in all cases. But Marvel has a different goal. Make a cinematic universe. Doesn't matter what happens in that universe. Doesn't matter if it's good, so long as it's all connected, everything will be great. I once asked one of my many Marvel fan friends this. If Thor was just a standalone film, didn't have anything to do with any cinematic universe, and would only get a sequel depending on what happened in the actual movie, would it really be worth your time? And he very honestly answered, no. But the question is irrelevant because it isn't a standalone film. It's part of a larger universe, and I think that's fun. I'll never get on anyone's case about what their definition of fun is, but that's entirely my point. These movies are being praised, or at the very least, refrained from being rightly criticized for reasons other than how good the movie is. You now can make the biggest piece of shit imaginable, and people will still like it so long as you connect it to this fucking universe. In fact, I firmly believe that if the Fantastic Four movies or the Daredevil movie was released today, exactly as they are, except worked into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, every Marvel fan would love them. Because when you judge them as movies, of course they're terrible, but when you judge them by whether or not they expand the universe, they can do no wrong. Where are the standards in something like that? I mean, what the hell happened to just making good films and having them succeed or fail on the merits of how good the film actually fucking was? In fact, I'll go so far as to say this. I don't think it's a case of I just don't like Marvel. I think it's the case that the majority of Marvel fans just like Marvel, and are willing to stomach any shit so long as it's got that logo and is part of their shitty universe. And thanks to this awful garbage mess, we now have movies that are planned to be sprawling cinematic universe franchises before anyone even knows what the movie is going to be about, before anyone knows if they like it yet. Oh, and on that note, remember way back when I reviewed Star Trek Into Darkness and said that the stupid Marvel movies were making movies worse, and everyone said that's bullshit, the Marvel movies are making things great, and then the Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out and it was overly complicated and shoehorned in things that didn't need to be there in order to establish a cinematic universe at the expense of the actual film, and then we heard that DC was fast-tracking a Justice League movie and sacrificing the new Superman film to the movie gods in order to do this, and everyone cried foul because so many movies are being gutted and strip-mined to make way for more cinematic universes, thus proving my claim that the stupid Marvel movies are making movies worse! Remember that? So here are my final statements. If the cinematic universe thing gives you joy, wonderful. I have no problem with anyone liking what they like. And I have no problem with people disagreeing with me about the things I don't like. No matter how vocally. If you want to say I just don't know how to have fun because I don't like this cinematic universe stuff, fine. If you want to say that I'm just an arrogant bully for saying bad things about this giant mega corporation, fine. But don't you dare tell me that I have no reason to dislike this studio, or its business practices, or the quality of the films they release. I have every reason to do so. They have given me every reason to do so. And I have no idea how to wrap this video up, so I will simply end with my usual default statement. Fuck this bullshit.